Revealed, the incredible $86,000 journey of my brother's dream. What happened at 2 a.m. will touch you. Jake Thompson leaned heavily on the workbench, the hum of the flickering fluorescent lights a frail companion in the late-night stillness. His hands, calloused and stained with grease, trembled slightly as he stared at the application for the $86,000 grant, the lifeline for his family's struggling auto repair shop. Hope and desperation battled fiercely in his chest, and the smell of motor oil only deepened the weight on his shoulders. Could tradition truly withstand the tides of innovation? The thought sent his mind spiraling as he envisioned the garage that had once hummed with life, now wilting under financial strain. His father's stern face flashed in his mind, a constant reminder of the expectations pressing down like a lead weight. Jake felt cornered, suspended between honoring the legacy built over generations and the urgent need to adapt. Each rejection that unfolded before him echoed the dread of his father's disapproval, yet in some hidden corner of his heart, he yearned for fresh air, a glimpse of possibility. As waves of frustration surged through him, Jake's mind swirled with conflicting emotions. His younger brother Ben had been bubbling with tech-inspired ambitions, a stark contrast to their father's conservative vision. The idea of an app that could connect their garage with customers rushed in like a storm. But could it be their salvation, or would it be the catalyst that fractured their family? The unease thickened, gnawing at his resolve. "Hey, Jake?" Ben's quiet voice broke through the tension. He shuffled in hesitantly, eyes bright with excitement yet shadowed by uncertainty. Jake looked up, an instinctual urge to both listen and shield himself from the impending confrontation rising within him. "I've been working on something," Ben continued, his voice trembling slightly. "An app, it's an idea. It could connect us directly with our customers. It could transform the whole business model." Jake's heart raced. Suddenly, everything felt closer, more urgent. The tension shifted like gears in an engine, each moment layered with both potential and peril. "But Dad," Jake started, caught in a whirlpool of his own conflicting loyalties. "Dad won't like it," Ben interjected, a tinge of frustration creasing his brow. "But we can't keep stagnating. We have to try something." Their eyes locked, a mix of wonder and desperation flickering in the space between them. Here they stood, a brotherhood entwined with legacy and innovation alike. Jake wanted to cling to the familial bonds, yet the craving for progress was intoxicating. Each possibility rang out like a promise, but the fear of family rifts loomed menacingly. "Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." With every idea they brainstormed, the fear lingered that what if their dreams would fracture their family? The competitors had already taken notice, an undercurrent of threats. An established rival had caught wind of their ambitions, launching subtle, cruel jabs aimed to splinter their resolve. Each time Jake felt the web tightening, he wrestled with feelings of impending betrayal against his father's unwavering beliefs and Ben's restless aspirations. This uncertainty hovered over him like an impending storm as he sat staring into the dim future of Thompson's garage. Was their bond forged strong enough to weather what lay ahead? Before the night swallowed them whole, he glanced at the grant application, feeling the enormity of their next choices. Every second tightened the resolve in Jake's gut, wrestling with the ticking clock. As the flickering lights buzzed, he wondered, could they toe the line between ambition and family without losing everything they held dear? Jake rubbed his eyes, their heaviness weighing more than the fatigue creeping into his bones. The conversation with Ben had ignited something within him, a flicker of possibility that felt both thrilling and treacherous. He couldn't shake the images of his father's disappointment. It gnawed at him, a relentless specter in the dark. As he wiped the grease off his hands, preparing to return to the task at hand, the crunch of gravel outside broke the silence of the garage. He peered through the grimy window, noting the familiar face of their grandfather pulling up in his old pickup truck. The worry creased Jake's brow. His grandfather had been the first to breathe life into Thompson's garage, and the weight of his legacy hung heavily in the air. "Jake, you in there?" His grandfather's voice rang out, tinged with authority and concern. The old man entered, the scent of wood smoke following him like a faithful shadow. "Yeah, Gramps," Jake replied, masking the turmoil that spiraled in him. "What's up?" "Just wanted to see how things are going with the shop," the elder Thompson said, his eyes scanning the cluttered space, settling on the unsubmitted application on the workbench. "Shouldn't you be in bed?" "It's late." Jake shifted uneasily, his vulnerability laid bare under the gaze of those who had come before him. He faltered, the urge to share the looming change coiling in his chest. Instead, he cleared his throat. "Talking with Ben about some new ideas." His grandfather's eyebrows knitted together. "Ideas? Son, you should focus on what works. We've spent years building this place brick by brick. A shiny app won't fix the cracks." The weight of the family's history pressed down on him. Jake swallowed hard, the conflicting desires spiraling into a storm. "I know, Gramps. But don't you think times are changing? Maybe it's time we evolve, try to get ahead?" The old man shook his head slowly, disappointment flooding his features. "You don't want to be the generation that loses what we built. You might think the world is different now, but hard work has always been what makes us thrive." "But what about innovation?" Jake wanted to challenge, to voice the haunting insecurity that gripped him like a vice. Instead, he found himself nodding in silence. "How has Ben handling all this?" his grandfather asked, the concern now evident in his tone. "Ben believes in the app. He thinks it could bring in more customers, give us a modern edge." "And you?" Jake hesitated, his mind racing between loyalty to his brother and his grandfather's steadfast beliefs. "I am not sure." The moment hung, tension thick enough to slice through. Each heartbeat felt heavy in his chest, amplifying the conflict within. He had always been the cautious one, the protector of family traditions. Yet a flicker of ambition pushed against the walls he had built, daring him to break through. "Just remember, Jake," his grandfather said softly, "sometimes, moving forward means staying true to your roots." As the elder Thompson left the garage with a shove of the door, the weight of his words clung to Jake like a second skin. Doubt wormed its way into his thoughts as he returned to the flickering light above the workbench. The urge to submit the application fought against the deep-seated belief that doing so meant risking everything he had ever known. Ben peeked through the door, eyes bright with a blend of fear and excitement. "Is he okay with it?" "No." Ben's shoulders fell slightly, understanding flashing in his gaze. "Then we have to show him." Something ignited within Jake, a burgeoning resolve. Perhaps it was time to confront not just their father's and grandfather's expectations, but also his own doubts. He could feel the energy buzzing in his veins, a mix of fear and fierce determination. "Let us do it," Jake said, the urgency of change resonating in his voice. "Let us prove we're not trying to erase the past. We're trying to build a future." As they began to brainstorm their next steps, Jake understood the road ahead would be rocky, strewn with confrontations and compromises. But his heart raced with anticipation. The fusion of tradition and innovation was precisely the battle he needed to face. The stakes had never been higher. The moment of confrontation loomed around the next corner, both with family and within himself. Would he finally have the courage to bridge the gap between legacy and progress, or would he fold under the weight of expectations? Jake sat at the workbench, the clutter of tools and faded blueprints surrounding him like forgotten relics. The chaos mirrored his mind, which was muddied with confusion and fear. He pulled a piece of paper toward him, the application form glaring back as if taunting him. It bore potential and opportunity to push past the weight of legacy, but it felt like a personal betrayal. "What's our first move?" Ben's voice broke through his thoughts, brimming with excitement. Jake took a deep breath, feeling the air grow thicker as he contemplated the confrontation ahead. "We need to structure this idea. If we're going to convince Gramps, it's not just about the app itself. We need to plan something that respects our roots while embracing change." The words surprised him. They felt more confident than he'd anticipated. Ben nodded, a grin creeping across his face. Let us lay it all out. We'll highlight how we can enhance customer engagement and streamline services. Show him it's not just about flashy tech, but about keeping the garage thriving. As they spread papers across the bench, Jake felt a twinge of exhilaration accompanied by an undercurrent of doubt. Would their grandfather see the merit? Or would he dismiss it outright? Their brainstorming stretched on, ideas ebbing and flowing like a tide, pushing Jake to articulate a vision he had only recently started to embrace. Frequently, he found himself stealing glances at the framed photos on the walls, capturing moments of triumph and legacy, his father smiling in front of the garage, his grandfather with grease-stained hands. Did they have to let go of that history to move forward? Or was bridging both worlds the true innovation required? Suddenly, Ben blurted out, "What if we organize a community workshop? Show how the app can connect with local clients through special offers or events." The thought tugged at a piece of Jake's heart. That could be the hook. Bring the community in, but also showcase the potential to the family. We push for innovation while also paying homage to what this place represents. The notion resonated, igniting a latent strength within him. They began drafting a presentation and rapidly filled sheets with strategies, marketing ideas, potential partnerships. Each point reinforced Jake's growing confidence, compelling him to confront his fears head-on, rather than retreat into the familiar. But then, doubts crept back. Images of his grandfather's disappointed face filled his mind again. His pulse quickened, and for a moment, Jake hesitated. How could he bring this forward without evoking anger? "You're overthinking it again," Ben said, reading his expression. "You keep questioning yourself. You've got to own this." Jake faltered, caught between loyalty and ambition. What if he just sees it as a threat? Then we need to frame it differently, Ben reasoned. We present it as a way to honor the past, showing that we're not trying to erase it, just build on it. The conviction in Ben's voice lit a fire in Jake's chest. Maybe it was time to confront his fears. This wasn't just about the app, it was about discovering who he could become within the family legacy. With a newfound clarity, Jake glanced at the stack of papers piled in front of him. He could practically feel the weight of ancestral expectations pressing down. Still, the desire for growth overshadowed the fear of rejection. Okay. Let us finalize this and schedule a meeting with him for tomorrow. I need to know if I'm capable of bridging this gap, if I can stand up for what I believe in. That evening, as he packed the papers neatly into a folder, a quiet determination settled in him. Confrontation awaited, but so did the prospect of change. The lines of his legacy were blurring, and he was ready to rewrite them if it meant moving forward. Tomorrow loomed large, a threshold he was reluctant yet eager to cross. It was time to stand firm, to test the veracity of his drive against the history that shaped him. As Jake locked up the garage for the night, he felt the stirrings of resolve. The moment of truth was drawing closer, and he was determined not to falter. Would his grandfather respect the courage beneath his divergence from tradition, or would he face an unyielding rejection that tested his own convictions? As dawn broke over the garage, its tired beams spilled through the cracked windows, illuminating the scattered remnants of last night's work. Jake stood in front of the paperwork he had organized the previous evening, each page now a promise imbued with both anxiety and anticipation. He felt weighty silence settle around him, broken only by the rhythmic clicking of the clock on the wall, each tick a reminder that time was slipping away, marching inexorably toward the confrontation he had dreaded and desired. The sun cut through the slivers of dust in the air, casting a golden hue that warmed his resolve. Jake had never been one for pretense. If he was stepping into the lion's den of family expectations, he owed it to himself to carry forth his sincerest intentions. The weight of his grandfather's legacy lay heavy on his shoulders. Still, he clung to the inkling that change, if approached with respect and understanding, could pave a new path for both the garage and his own identity. He met Ben in the cramped kitchen, their shared urgency palpable as they exchanged hurried remarks about final edits and presentation strategies. But Jake's heart raced for a different reason, not nerves surrounding the pitch itself, but something deeper. This was not merely about the app, he was grappling with a conflict that felt like a rift across his very being. "Are we ready?" Ben asked, glancing at the digital clock, a reminder they needed to leave soon. Jake hesitated. His mind recalled a stern warning his grandfather once imparted: "Tradition is our anchor." It had often felt like a heavy chain rather than a guiding beacon. What if he only sees us as naive? He questioned, weighing each word. What if all this effort doesn't mean anything to him? Ben leaned against the counter, arms crossed, his expression hardening with determination. And what if it does? The challenge in his voice struck Jake, reverberating through the uncertainty clouding him. That afternoon, as they arrived at the garage for the meeting, Jake noticed the familiar scent of motor oil mixed with the sun-warmed asphalt outside. It was intoxicating yet unnerving, memories of family history intermingled with the sharp need for progress within him. The door creaked open to his grandfather's office, an overwhelming tapestry of the past, detailed blueprints plastered against the walls, yellowed and fading like submerged memories. Gramps sat behind his desk, an imposing figure whose age spoke of experience but also of resistance. Jake's throat tightened. He took a deep breath, grounding himself. This was a leap into the unknown, but reality awaited feedback on his resilience. "Jake, Ben," Gramps greeted, his tone unreadable. "What's this about?" Jake glanced at Ben, who nodded in encouragement. Suddenly, the words he prepared felt clumsy, inadequate. The apprehension returned, flooding in torrents. He needed to be strong, he needed to honor both the past and the future. "Gramps," he began, finding a rhythm as he felt his heart race, "we've been working on something we believe can improve the garage's connection to customers while preserving everything it stands for." A slight quiver in his voice betrayed his nerves, but he pressed on. "This app is a chance to engage with our community in ways that respect our legacy but also allows us to adapt to modern needs. We're not trying to erase what you built, we want to enhance it." His grandfather remained still, expression inscrutable. In that thick silence, Jake sensed an unfamiliar crackle in the air. It felt like opportunity and dread merging into one. Each second stretched, carrying the weight of potential dismissal. "What's your plan?" Gramps finally asked, the challenge in his tone pushing Jake to reveal the meticulous strategies they crafted. But beneath Jake's calculated words, a deeper tumult brewed. Did tradition mean stagnation? Could he stand to lose the approval he so desperately sought? The moment unfolded in stark contrast, a chance to redefine himself or retreat back into the shadows of expectation. Ambivalence clawed at him as he presented the intricacies of their ideas. The future loomed large, promising revolution or irrevocable loss. But with each word, he began to realize that the true battle lay within him. Would he advocate for his vision or be swept away by the tide of fear? As the meeting drew on, Jake could feel both his pulse and determination quickening, awakening something inside he had long suppressed. "What we create is no less valuable than your history, Gramps," he urged, pushing against the thick veneer of familial norms encasing them. The breath of silence that followed was heavy, promising while darkly threatening. In that charged atmosphere, a new chapter unfurled. Would it be one of acceptance or rejection? The answer lay just before them, ready to disrupt everything Jake thought he knew about legacy, fear, and the courage to evolve. The air thickened, and just as Gramps opened his mouth to respond, Jake braced himself for the weight of truth that was about to be released. Would he face a revelation that altered the course of his path or merely seal his fate within the walls of tradition? The seconds stretched into an eternity, vibrating with tension as Gramps leaned forward in his chair, fingers steepled, his brow furrowing in concentration. Jake's heart thundered against his ribcage, and the room felt increasingly small, like the walls were closing in as his grandfather finally spoke in a low, deliberative timbre. "Your intentions are admirable, but it's not about what you want. It's about what's truly needed." Each word dripped with skepticism, and Jake's hope flickered like a candle in the wind. Suddenly, the air shifted. The weight of tradition pressed upon Jake, igniting a defensive fire within him. "What do you mean?" he vocalized, uncertainty lacing his voice. Isn't modernization necessary to keep us alive? To honor the legacy? The silence was deafening, amplifying the tension. Gramps stared at him, a glimmer of challenge hidden in his eyes. This isn't just about the garage, it's about respecting a legacy that took years to build. What have you done to understand the people who kept this place running? The question struck Jake like a blow, reverberating deep within him. Had he really taken the time to comprehend the spirit of the business? He dwelled in ideas and strategies but never sought to know the people behind the numbers, the technicians who carried the weight of his grandfather's toil daily. He felt the ground shift beneath him as a realization dawned: comprehension and empathy were crucial, and he had neglected them. Maybe I should spend time with them, he stated, almost to himself. The thought was raw, unprocessed, but it ignited a curiosity that flared brighter than his initial ambition. What if I talked to them? Listen to what they think? Their insights might shape our project. Ben shifted nervously, glancing at Gramps, who remained rigid, processing the notion. You mean to gather feedback? Jake's voice wobbled slightly as he hoped for endorsement. Gramps nodded slowly, his expression shifting, though skepticism still flickered. People's stories and experiences are invaluable. Wisdom can guide strategy in ways data cannot. But the question remains: are you ready to hear what they want, even if it contradicts your vision? The implications cascaded over Jake, a torrent of self-doubt and self-discovery. Would he be able to encounter dissenting perspectives without feeling threatened? Could he embrace the chaos of collaboration over personal conviction? Doubt gnawed at him. Perhaps he would find discomfort in dismantling his preconceived notions. I need to absorb as much as I can before diving back into the app, Jake admitted, his voice steadier now. Determination wove itself into his thoughts. This has to be more than just an app, it must reflect our community's values. If we're to coexist with tradition, we need to include everyone's voice. Gramps nodded slowly again, a slight approval flickering in his gaze. But Jake could sense the pushback still simmering beneath the surface, and he realized he was not safe from the storm of familial expectations that had haunted him. Then go, Gramps commanded, his tone a mixture of challenge and hope. But this isn't just about you learning, it's about how you choose to enact that knowledge. You might find allies or face truths you're not prepared for. As the conversation shifted back and forth, Jake immersed himself in the learning process. Each piece of feedback he internalized brought forth a burgeoning sense of self. He felt liberated. This journey could forge a new identity, enhancing the garage's legacy while crafting his own. The closing thoughts of the meeting lingered in the air, a gentle unraveling of tension. Jake departed with a renewed sense of purpose, mapping out the next few days in his mind. The prospect of engaging with the team thrilled him but also terrified him. Who would he encounter? How would they challenge his perception of the garage? The urgency to connect remained, but it was now layered with uncertainty. As he stepped out into the open air, Jake took a deep breath, bracing himself for the myriad of revelations ahead. The legacy he thought he was merely inheriting was now something he could actively shape if he dared to face the truths hidden within the community he was part of. But he was still left with the inevitable question: what if what he discovered forced him to confront the very foundations of his ambitions? Engulfed in a wave of determination, Jake found himself standing at the threshold of the garage the next morning, its familiar embrace juxtaposed with the uncertainty that coursed through him. The scent of oil mixed with a sharp tang of metal filled the air, stirring memories of his childhood adventures in this very space. Yet today felt different. It was a meeting ground for self-discovery. As he stepped inside, the hum of machinery and the clanking of tools greeted him like an old friend, but this visit came with a new purpose. Today, he wasn't just the owner, he was a learner, yearning to absorb insights as old as the garage itself. The realization hung heavy on him. Understanding what lay beneath the surface meant risking exposing his own vulnerabilities. Jake walked towards the work area where technicians gathered, exchanging jokes and technical tips. Tom, a grizzled mechanic who had been with the garage for over a decade, was the first to notice his arrival. Hey, Jake. You're here early. What's the plan? Is there a big change coming? The playful confidence in Tom's voice pierced through Jake's resolve. Actually, I'm looking to. He paused, the words caught in his throat as self-doubt crept back in. I want to understand what you all think about the current operations. Tom arched an eyebrow, curiosity mingling with skepticism. You want our input on the garage? That's novel. The other technicians cast sidelong glances, intrigued yet reserved. Yeah, I do. I think we need to. He hesitated again, the weight of his grandfather's challenge lingering in the back of his mind. I want to figure out how we can improve things, together. A palpable tension filled the air. Some of the crew exchanged skeptical glances, a mix of disbelief and intrigue. Jake felt a growing knot in his stomach as he fumbled through the intricacies of his thought process. Could he genuinely open himself to their insights? Just then, Maria, the newest technician known for her keen attention to detail, spoke up. You know, Jake, it's about more than just making things look good on paper. It's about how we feel in this environment. Her voice was steady, underscoring an unanticipated depth of resilience. Exactly, and that often gets overlooked, Tom interjected, his tone shifting. We're not just cogs in a machine. We've got ideas and experience that could really help. A flicker of understanding sparked in Jake's mind. Their skepticism, while fair, was a challenge for him to rise above. Was he willing to confront the discomfort of facing their truths? Let us do this, he declared, channeling his growing conviction. I want to hear your thoughts on what works and what doesn't around here, and I want it to be an open conversation. Slowly, the atmosphere began to shift. Techniques and advantages were debated, but so were the issues that had been festering beneath the surface. Feedback poured in, frustrations over outdated equipment, the need for enhanced communication, and the importance of a work culture that respected every voice in the room. As Jake listened, a new eagerness replaced his initial fear. Each shared concern felt like a stepping stone into their world, a chance for him to bridge the gap between aspiration and reality. The knowledge they possessed acted as a catalyst to reshape not only the future of the garage but to reformulate his place within it. By midday, Jake considered how different the dynamics felt. Although still heavy, the air of doubt began to lighten, replaced by a burgeoning sense of camaraderie. He saw faces animated with ideas, realizing that exploring their experiences would ultimately enrich his vision. Yet, as the discussions continued, a nagging thought threatened the developing optimism. What if their truths forced him to relinquish elements of his ambition he held dear? Would he remain true to himself while adapting to their collective vision? Stepping back from the hustle for a moment, Jake pondered how much of his identity was tied to the idea of being a trailblazer versus a team player. The duality of his role weighed heavily. On him, could he align his destiny with theirs without losing his individual aspirations? With the collective voices echoing behind him, Jake understood he was just scratching the surface of what he could learn. Lifting his gaze towards the garage doors, an unyielding resolve took root. The battle within him was only beginning, and the path forward was laden with difficult choices. As he rejoined the crew, the question echoed again in his mind: what if the legacy he sought to honor required him to challenge everything he thought he knew about himself? As the day wore on, Jake felt an unexpected exhilaration coursing through him, mingling with the tension that had initially gripped his chest. The insights exchanged in the garage had forged a sense of community that ignited something deeper within him. This was no longer just a business transaction, it was an exploration of identity, both personal and collective. How he processed their feedback would define not only the garage's future but his own trajectory as well. Returning to the fray, he cautiously engaged with each technician, resisting the urge to slip back into an authoritative position. Instead, he asked open-ended questions, encouraging them to elaborate on their experiences and frustrations. Each response was a piece of a puzzle he was dedicated to solving, not just for the garage but for his career and self-worth. The more they talked, the more Jake realized he had underestimated their depth of knowledge and investment in the business. Tom discussed the frustrations with the aging equipment and how it impacted their efficiency on the jobs. It's not just about fixing cars, Jake. It's about being able to do our jobs well. We can't deliver quality if we're constantly fighting against outdated tools. Jake nodded, absorbing every word, realizing this was an insight into a systemic issue that needed urgent attention. Right. We need to address that, he agreed, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. What do you think the priorities should be? The technicians began to offer suggestions, ideas that sparkled with potential. But Jake couldn't escape the feeling that their collective wisdom also flagged his shortcomings as a leader. He had been living in a bubble, ensconced in his vision, oblivious to the practical realities they faced day by day. This realization was jarring. Was he so focused on innovation that he had ignored the foundational needs of the business? Maria, again, filled the silence with an astute observation. You know, we also need better communication. A lot of things get lost in translation between departments. If we collaborate more, it'll elevate our productivity. Jake took a mental note, a kernel of clarity snapping into focus. Their sentiment illuminated the lack of cohesion within the team, exposing a critical gap that needed bridging. Designating specific roles for idea generation, feedback loops, or even collaborative problem-solving sessions could elevate the culture and productivity he aspired to cultivate. The discussions continued, revealing not just operational hurdles but also emotional burdens they carried. Jake felt as if he were peeling back layers of an onion, each revelation coiling tighter around his heart. It was a fine line to walk, respecting their sentiments while trying to instill a shared sense of purpose. As the sun dipped below the horizon, a sense of vulnerability settled over him. He realized that to enact real change, he might have to confront his own vulnerabilities. His identity as a leader was at stake. Was he prepared to let go of the image of the all-knowing boss and expose himself as someone still in the process of learning? The reflection stung, but he knew the choice was either adapt or remain stagnant. If he were to build this garage into something greater than what it had been, he needed not just their buy-in but their inspiration. They were not merely subjects of his ambition, they were allies in a common cause. With renewed vigor, he proposed a weekly brainstorming session, where everyone could contribute not just to operational improvements but also to sharing personal development goals. We're all in this together. Let us invest in each other's growth, he declared, and a ripple of surprised appreciation washed over the team. But just when Jake thought the energy had shifted in a positive direction, he noticed a shadow flickering at the periphery of their discussion, a skepticism still lingering in the corners of the room. Was he equipped to navigate the deeper frustrations, the unspoken grievances that simmered just out of sight? The unsteady ground beneath him felt both thrilling and perilous. As he wrapped up the day, exhilaration mingled with mounting anxiety. Forces were at play that he hadn't yet fully grasped: his growing relationship with the technicians and the inevitable confrontations waiting to unfold. Jake stepped out of the garage, the evening air crisp and laden with a newfound urgency to confront the challenges ahead. In that moment of quiet retaliation against uncertainty, he wondered, could he truly pave a path forward while remaking his own identity? The answer loomed on the horizon, one that would set in motion a haunting conflict he could no longer ignore. How far was he willing to go, and what sacrifices would he need to make, to hold on to his identity while reshaping their collective future? The morning light filtered into the workshop, casting sharp shadows across the tools and machinery, emphasizing the dust motes dancing in the air. Jake arrived early, the weight of responsibility pressing against his chest like a leaden vest. Today was the day he would address the team directly about the brainstorming session, a confrontation with his own self-doubt and a chance to step beyond the comfort of his previously rigid leadership style. As he prepared for the meeting, a knot of anxiety twisted in his stomach. Would they view him as a credible leader now that he was opening the floor to ideas? Would they accept his vulnerabilities, or would they seize upon them? As he paced the workshop floor, he forced himself to stand tall and maintain eye contact with the tools that had become his allies. Each one represented potential, both mechanical and human. The room began to fill, the familiar sounds of chatter intermingling with the clanking of tools. Jake took a deep breath, grounding himself. "Thank you all for being here," he started, voice steady despite the flutter in his chest. "I know we've been facing some challenges, and today I want us to discuss how we can tackle them together." He could see the skepticism floating around the room like a low-hanging fog. Conversations muted slightly, curiosity mixed with wary anticipation. Maria caught his eye, offering a nod of encouragement, while Tom leaned against a workbench, arms crossed, a skeptical eyebrow raised. "Let us talk about our goals," Jake continued, "and how we can enhance both our work environment and our output." He could feel everyone's eyes on him, assessing not just him but the very notion of their productivity and future. As he opened the floor for contributions, the initial awkwardness melted into passionate exchanges. Ideas flowed, suggestions erupted, and, gradually, Jake began to feel the collaborative energy weave through the room. The technicians expressed their frustrations with the lack of updates on repairs and voiced their desire for more training opportunities. The concept of team began to pulse in the air, lending a rhythm to the discussion. But there was a shift that Jake couldn't ignore. While some voiced their concerns openly, others remained silent, their hesitance weighed down by unseen burdens. As laughter erupted over a joke shared among the technicians, he noticed a few of them still stood detached. Their expressions hinted at deeper issues, resentment or a lack of faith in the change he promised. "Can we talk about the equipment again?" Tom put forth hesitantly, cutting through the jovial atmosphere. "We need more than just a pep talk. It's about the tools we use. If we don't have the right stuff, how can we be expected to perform?" Jake felt a rush of frustration wash over him. He had hoped for high spirits and motivation, yet here they were, still grappling with the ghosts of systemic disregard. "I get that," he replied, keeping his tone even. "But yes, let us tackle the equipment issue. What specifically do you think we need?" The ensuing discussion was raw and powerful. Insights were shared, each comment revealing layers of frustration Jake hadn't fully accounted for. It was a reflection of where he had once stood himself, naively optimistic while overlooking substantial hurdles. But their words had stirred something in him. If this was the conversation they needed to have, he had to lead it into tangibility. "So, if we can prioritize the essential tools, identify the immediate needs, and then look at the long-term investments. How does that sound?" There was a glint of surprise in their eyes, a flicker of hope perhaps, but still lingering skepticism. The room was charged with potential, yet Jake sensed the unease still hovering, like a dark cloud waiting to rain. As he wrapped up the session, the team seemed reinvigorated but not fully convinced. While they exchanged ideas with renewed enthusiasm, Jake realized he hadn't fully unlocked their trust. The path to a united front was fraught with challenges he hadn't anticipated. Emerging from the meeting, Jake confronted a chilling reality. The team's goodwill might easily be overshadowed by unresolved doubts and deep-seated grievances. Had he merely scratched the surface of this intricate landscape? He leaned against the wall, letting the renewed energy die down into a whisper, contemplating his next move. A choice lay before him: continue on this path of transparency or retreat to his old ways. As he steeled himself for the next challenge, he wondered if he truly possessed the resilience to shatter the barriers he had built both within himself and with his team. The next session loomed, but with it came an unsettling realization: how far would he need to go to earn their trust, and more importantly, was he ready to confront the one person whose judgment terrified him the most, himself? Jake spent the next few days in a turbulent haze of reflection and anxiety. Each evening as he returned home, his thoughts swirled around the meeting, the faces of his team haunting him as they shared their unfiltered frustrations. They had opened up, but he felt he hadn't pushed back just as hard against the walls of doubt encircling his leadership. What were they thinking of him now? Did sharing his vulnerabilities create a bond, or merely expose a chink in his armor they would exploit later? Each question clawed at him, a relentless whisper that pushed him deeper into introspection. In those quiet moments before sleep, dogged determination intermingled with suffocating uncertainty. Should he change his approach to leadership permanently? The thought of slipping back into rigidity was like a siren call. He had navigated his way through it once but had no guarantees that he could do so again. Each moment of indecision chipped away at his courage, forcing him to confront the fear of failure lurking within. His routine began to shift. Jake arrived at the workshop earlier than ever, hoping to immerse himself in the tasks at hand. He meticulously organized tools, forcing moments of clarity through the rhythm of physical labor. Each turn of the wrench became a metaphor for the adjustments he aimed to make, both in the workspace and within himself. The following brainstorming session was approaching, yet the thought of it sent tremors of apprehension through his body. As he stood by the heavy wooden workbench one morning, he contemplated whether he truly trusted himself enough to foster the team's trust. His lifeline lay just within reach, an unyielding conviction to listen more. But was that enough? Each day, Jake engaged with individuals on the floor, drawing them out in small conversations about their concerns about everything from equipment issues to personal aspirations. In those exchanges, seeds of connection began to bloom. The more he listened, the more they shared, an organic flow of conversation that chipped away at his anxious uncertainties. It felt foreign yet strangely comforting. That Friday, he found himself sitting across from Maria at lunch, discussing various projects outside the rigidity of meetings. The relaxed air allowed him to reveal a side of himself previously hidden, a buried vulnerability that triggered cracking laughter over shared experiences. Within that moment candidness could flourish. Jake felt a glimmer of the leader he yearned to become. Yet when the laughter faded, the reality of his unworked relationships crept back in. The next team meeting loomed, and he needed to produce not just hope but a viable plan. As the clock wound down to the session, adrenaline surged through him. He needed to take calculated risks, moments that pushed him out of his comfort zone and demanded they confront the uncomfortable aspects of their workflow. The clock ticked relentlessly that day as he drew the meeting closer. His palms sweat and his heart raced, each beat echoing the gravity of the moment. Would they embrace the risk? Could he orchestrate this transformative shift, or would he stumble under the weight of expectation and vulnerability he had laid bare? The workshop was abuzz with an anxious energy as they gathered, a tight-knit group wrapped in shared anticipation. Jake stood at the head of the meeting, nerves tightening in his gut but determination blossoming in his chest. This time, he would not dwell on his fear but grapple with the challenge ahead. As he began to speak, revealing the intentions for a collaborative project to redesign their workflow, he spotted Tom's skeptical eyebrow raised again, like a siren warning him that perhaps, just perhaps, the team wasn't as ready as he hoped. "You want us to redesign?" Tom challenged, his voice steady yet laced with incredulity. "Do we even have the right tools for that?" Jake steadied himself, feeling the sting of the question cut deep. This was the moment the ground beneath him felt both precarious and solid as he faced a growing fracture in the team's resolve. "Let us talk about that," he replied, channeling the very determination that had pushed him to this breaking point. "Together, we will figure out what we need to succeed. But I need your honesty." In that moment, Jake was not just confronting Tom, but the essence of his leadership journey, the daunting task of earning the unwavering trust of his team while battling his self-doubt. What lay ahead? The fight for cohesion felt like a mountain not yet scaled, yet the first steps beckoned him forward. Would he find the resilience within himself to shatter the doubts, or would he falter at this critical intersection? The meeting room buzzed with energy, a palpable tension wrapped around the team. Jake stood before his technicians, the weight of his aspirations pressing down like a lead blanket. This was more than just about workflows, it was about claiming his identity as a leader, a task intertwined with vulnerability and resilience. "Today, we're here to redesign not just our workflow but our relationship," he began, his voice steady despite the tremors of anxiety. "We have to decide what tools we need on every level to create a culture of innovation that honors this garage's legacy." Tom's skepticism hung in the air, but Jake welcomed it. "I need your input now more than ever," he urged. "That means digging into the root of our challenges, laying bare what we fear and where we excel." With those words, a shift emerged. Jake leaned into the animosity he had previously encountered, knowing it could unlock the truth. The room erupted into conversation, ideas firing back and forth, hesitance melting into urgency as concerns blurred the lines of hierarchy. The technicians were no longer just voices but partners in a dance of discovery. "Let us confront our equipment issues," Maria chimed in. "Old tools hold us back, and guess what? They also dampen our morale. We need to work with the best to be our best." "Yes. Jake called out, invigorated by her directness. "What specific tools do we need? Let us prioritize and pitch what each of you sees fit." Hands shot up as technicians shared thoughts, each revelation breaking Jake from the confines of solitary vision. The feedback flowed relentlessly, almost liberating constructive ideas weaving together like a tapestry. "Jake, I think the issue isn't just the tools, it's also our workflow. We need roles clearly defined, so everyone feels empowered," Tom remarked, unexpectedly embracing the collaboration rather than dissenting. For the first time, Jake glimpsed the potential of synergy emerging between leadership and team. Jake seized this moment, a glow of confidence igniting in him. "Right. Let us create specific teams to address these roles and processes. We can set working groups, small units that tackle precise objectives." As the team rallied around the idea, something within Jake solidified. He was no longer just a caretaker of the garage's history but a builder of its future. He had mastered the delicate balance between honoring tradition and allowing progression, a conviction rooted deep within him. But still nestled in the background was a fear, a whisper suggesting doubt. Was he truly ready to step into this new identity? The meeting concluded, and the air felt ripe with possibility. Conversations lingered long after the formalities ended, laughter peppering the room, a sound so foreign yet immensely rewarding to Jake's ears. Each connect thread across the team revitalized their bonds, amplifying Jake's direct involvement and honesty. Days passed, Jake delved deeper into connecting with each technician, sharing moments of understanding. From shared lunches to late evening brainstorming sessions, he began forging relationships that transformed their fabric of teamwork. They built trust and camaraderie over small victories. Even minor successes at work brought triumphant smiles. Simultaneously, Jake remained relentless in tackling the equipment issues they had unearthed, soliciting team-based input while drafting proposals for new machines. He gravitated toward learning from their feedback, embracing advice and guidance as a core strength. Facing the elders of suppliers and negotiating contracts felt invincible, not just on behalf of the team but as a connector between varied viewpoints. As the weeks rolled into a tangible revolution, Jake sensed the profound shift taking place. The once fractured dynamics of the garage transformed into collaborative synergy. Conversations began to trickle effortlessly, blending ideas that pushed boundaries. The environment brimmed with creativity, and Jake had become the catalyst. In the backdrop of this reformation stood his grandfather, observing from a distance. Jake sought moments to invite Gramps into their evolution, hoping to gain not just approval but insight from the wisdom that spanned generations. "Gramps, I'd love your input on our latest designs and plans." Weavy started to create small teams focused on productivity, he offered one afternoon, thumping his chest bravely. Jake's grandfather, taken aback, raised an eyebrow. He hadn't anticipated Jake's metamorphosis, a pivot away from rigid traditions towards something responsive. Over time, Gramps began to join in the meetings, a cautious curiosity guiding him. Instead of merely dismissing Jake's tech-driven approach, he offered suggestions based on years of craftsmanship, merging history and innovation seamlessly. When they unveiled the first changes, new machinery and redefined roles, the spirit of Thompson's garage was not just revitalized but redefined. Jake stood before the entire team, the garage thrumming with energy. "Thank you all for your trust, for your ideas. Together, we've woven a new tapestry of future rooted in our shared values," he proclaimed, vibrant confidence shining from within. As applause erupted, Jake felt a surge of pride, not just for himself but for every soul in that room. He had conquered his fears, shattered the barriers lurking in the shadows, and forged a new identity as a leader who truly listened and learned. At that moment, Jake knew he had not only transformed the garage but had redefined himself within his family's legacy. He had achieved the delicate balance between honoring the past and embracing the future. Solidified confidence pulsed through him. He had finally established his role as the bridge between tradition and evolution at Thompson's garage. As the echoes of celebration filled the air, Jake realized he was ready for what lay ahead. This was more than a milestone, it was a testament to the power of transformation through vulnerability and connection. "Now, this is your moment to take action. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your support is crucial. Comment below with your reactions and theories about this ending. Engage with us. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.